We're not going to redo our intro. Second try. I know you said hi YouTube earlier, username, but this is our first time. So hello. Today we'll be reading Lord of Mysteries from 325. I'm feeling good today, so we're going to stream until we're tired. The plan is to read more than a chapter. So hopefully this video is like 10 hours long, but we'll see. We'll see how we're feeling today. So if you like what you're going to see, make sure you like, comment, sub. Bro started reading my messages and then stopped. That's crazy. I didn't stop. What are you talking about, Red Devil? What'd I say? Oh, wait. I'm sorry. I actually did stop. All right. Wait, no, not all right. I gotta update my timestamps. Duh. Let's hi YouTube. Yeah, okay. Now we can update our timestamps for the first time because we didn't redo this intro. Wait, I didn't say that. Cammy said that. By the way, YouTube, we don't like VOD lurkers. Just like join the streams. I didn't say that. Cammy said that. When he returned to the living room, Klein picked up a letter opener and opened the envelope before taking out Isengard Stanton's letter. The famous detective wrote, "Your idea has greatly helped us. Please allow me to thank you here first. After receiving your letter, we immediately organized some people to sweep through crucial areas. As expected, we found some clues and quite a few stray animals that had frequently appeared and were remembered by the residents had disappeared." I read that wrong. In the process, we also noticed an interesting thing. 4 years ago in the serial murder case, yes, the targets were single prostitutes with a child. Quite a few people living near the scene of the crime had mentioned that although the most suspicious teenager was eccentric and vicious, he was quite fond of the animals, especially a large black dog. After the boy died in the gang firefight, the people who lived around him never saw the dog again. I'm curious. I feel like my music is too loud. I'm gonna turn down the smidge. I'm curious, who is the current owner? What is the murder of some unsolved serial murder case from even further back? The above facts have all been proven to be true at the scene of the 12th murder case and has been played by a key role in giving the police a preliminary idea of the suspect. If all goes well and the culprit is arrested, we will be able to get the majority of the reward money. My friend, I clearly remember your contribution. I will not forget your share. Isengard Stanton seems to suspect that I knew the truth about the devil, so he had deliberately hinted at something. Klein put down the letter and mumbled silently. However, this letter also made him feel relieved. The official Beyonders weren't looking for the wrong person. If the gigantic double dog didn't receive any additional help, I still think Stanton is helping that dog. Then, or changing into the dog? We'll see. Then it was only a matter of time before it was caught and killed. As for Isengard Stanton's prediction, there was another master. Klein didn't have enough evidence to confirm this matter, so it could only be said that there was a certain probability. In short, my mission ends here. The job is now left to the Nighthawks, mandated punishers, and machinery hive mind squads. Klein put out a fresh sheet of paper, picked up a fountain pen, and replied Isengard Stanton with a letter filled with humility. He also ignored his subtle hints like a real ordinary private detective. After cutting another paper figurine and sending the letter, Klein strolled to the public carriage, stopped to wait. He thought in a relaxed manner, the next thing to do is wait for the money. Lepard said he would be visiting Rizal Memorial Exhibition for 3 days straight. I'll have to wait until Saturday before visiting to find him and make the final payment. Hopefully, the patent for the bicycle will be filled then. Sigh, the Backland Patent Office seems to be known for its inefficiency. Klein had already made plans for the delay, since there was no Beyonder gatherings, resulting in him being unable to buy appropriate items. He suddenly had a lot of free time. He didn't need to be busy himself for a short period of time. In the morning, I'll go to the Quilling Club, practice my marksmanship, practice my Beyonder powers, have lunch there, and then find a better circus to observe the magician's performance, and see if I can get some inspiration. He took out his golden pocket watch and looked at it. He boarded the public carriage in a good mood. Hillstonborough Quilling Club. Since Klein came by at least twice a week, the attendants remembered him and didn't require him to show his proof of membership or his Frost Constellation badge. It was probably at the end of the year, right? It was Wednesday morning, and since most of the Quilling Club members belonged to the middle class, where they still had fixed and decent jobs, it was difficult for them to visit the club. Thank you for following on Twitch. Thank you. It was difficult for them to visit the club unless it was Sunday tea time, or when they took time off from work. The spacious and bright hall seemed abnormally empty. There were only a few people sitting in the corner when the coffee tables and sofas were. Glancing around, Klein spotted an acquaintance and went up to the greeting hall. to greet him. What did I read? Talon, with such terrific weather today, you should be at the Turf Club. The acquaintance was Talon, the aristocratic equestrian teacher who had introduced him to the club at the request of Miss Mary Dumont? I cannot read that. He had once brought client business, the protection of the Daily Observer reporter Mike Joseph on his trip to the Golden Rose for investigations. Did it loop? Oh, it replayed the sound effect. Talon looked up, touched his short brown curls, and smiled. Oh my, it's the Honorable Great Detective. What have you been up to? I haven't seen you in a long time. That's because you haven't been to the club for days. Klein smiled and sat on the sofa next to Talon. I have been helping the police with a serial murder case. Although it might not necessarily yield any results, the reward is tempting enough. Besides, establishing good retaliations with the police is very important for the private investigators. What I said was bragging. I'm just an unremarkable character who's been summoned. He mocked himself inwardly. Among the few members sitting in the same sofa area behind him, a man who appeared to be a stockbroker initiated a discussion on the latest Western Railway shares and the East Balham plantation shares. Talon didn't doubt Klein's honor. He chuckled and said, "This indeed something that will be busy." Oh my god, I can't read. This is indeed something that will be busy a great detective. After exchanging a few pleasantries, he gradually entered a pensive state. Just as Klein was about to bid him farewell and leave for the underground shooting range, Talon suddenly looked at him and said, "Mr. Moriarty, may I ask you a question?" You can charge me a consultation fee. This one is for free. Also, just call me Sherlock. Klein laughed. Talon nodded gently and said hesitantly, I have a friend who has fallen in love with someone he shouldn't have. How should he deal with the situation? Tell him to break up. Although I have always believed that anyone who asks a question prefaced with I have a friend basically means I myself. Talon's emotions colors implies that it's not for himself, he is in a dilemma, but I can't see any traces of pain. After activating his spirit vision, Klein leaned back slightly, clapped his hands, and said, I'm sorry, but I'm not a psychiatrist or any of the experts in the newspapers or magazines who are good at solving emotional problems. My only advice is not to break the law. That was a joke. First, we need to understand how this shouldn't have arose. Is there a feud between the family? Talon glanced at him and said in resignation, no, this isn't Romeo and Juliet. Upon hearing Talon's reply, Klein seemed to hear an illusory murmur in his ears. Author Rizzo Gustav, author Rizzo Gustav, author Rizzo Gustav. Shaking his head, he apologized to Shakespeare and smiled. This piece of work by Emperor Rizzo is just too classic. Did he copy? Did he just plagiarize Shakespeare? When it comes to love that shouldn't be, I can't help but think of it. Then why shouldn't they be together? Talon fell silent for a few seconds before saying, I have to keep it confidential. I'm sorry, just pretend I didn't ask. Confidential. This must be some certain standing in love with someone of the same sex, in love with someone who is related by blood. Klein held back his curiosity and said with his hands spread out, then I can only give you one more suggestion. Read bestsellers about passion and love like Stormwell Mountain Villa and Love and Jealousy. Just read rom-coms for inspiration. Of course, Rizal, he is the greatest plagiarist, dude. Talon quivered his lips a few times, sighed and said, that can be only used as a last resort. In my opinion, the feelings presents in those best-selling novels simply don't seem to occur among normal people. I think so too, Klein echoed in full agreement. After exchanging a smile with Talon, he got up and went to the underground shooting range to practice his shooting and beyond her powers. When it was almost noon, he returned to the first floor and went straight to the buffet cafeteria. He had noticed earlier that the cuisine that was in a limited supply today was red wine fried foie grass paired with sliced apples and bread soaked in butter. After taking his food, Klein carried his tray to the table with Talon where he was sitting. At that moment, there was another acquaintance of his who, by the same token, had recommended his membership. He was the surgeon Aaron Cerise. Cerise? Before he could sit down, after setting the tray down, Klein noticed a clutch leaning against the chair of the famous surgeon. Aaron, what's wrong? He asked with concern. The tall and thin man wore a pair of gold-rimmed glasses and a cold appearance. He lightly patted his right leg and said, no, don't mention it. It's really bad luck. I fell down the stairs and suffered rather serious fractures, so I could only fix it with a plaster. You really were unlucky. Klein sighed in agreement, cut a piece of foie grass, dipped it in sauce, and put it in his mouth. The fragrance that was emitted by the moment they melted in his mouth stimulated all of his taste buds. I've been out of luck for a long time. Aaron nudged his spectacle frames and rubbed his temples in passing. Hey, he then looked at Klein, then at Talon before asking hesitantly, Mr. Moriarty, do you what? What? Klein looked up. Aaron lowered his voice. You're a famous detective. You should know a lot of people, right? It's quite all right. Klein didn't understand what Aaron was up to as he answered perfunctorily. I cannot read that. Aaron looked at Talum again and took a deep breath. Do you know anyone who's like a village witch doctor? No, I mean some of the more capable fortune tellers or mysticism enthusiasts. I think I feel my recent string of bad luck is too abnormal. I know it's likely to be fake or a scam, but there's no other way of shrieking my bad luck. I've tried to go to the church, praying, donating, and attending mass, but it didn't work at all. Capable of fortune telling and mysticism enthusiast, you seem to be talking about me. Klein pondered and said, Aaron, tell us in detail about what happened to you, but his side Talum nodded as well. Don't worry, I may be a believer of the Lord, but I don't reject things regarding mysticism. Aaron sighed in distress. There are a lot of things, for example, making mistakes at the operating table. Oh, that is so bad. Making mistakes at the operating table, encountering an accident on the steam locomotive. I found that my house had been burgled when I returned home. When I went to the hospital, I ended up falling down the stairs. Do you think someone has cursed me? Yes, I've heard Aaron mention something like this before. Klein frowned slightly. As a former Nighthawk, it was easy for him to associate this description with a sealed artifact misfortune cloth puppet. Is that zero? No. That's the wrong puppet. Never mind. I was thinking of the puppet from Volume 1. But that was the... Oh my god. What was the family called? No. Oh my god. What was the puppet? The Fee something puppet. 0082. No, 208. 20... Artifact 2082. I forget what's the name of the puppet. It's like the family name puppet. Could it be a similar item? He activated his spirit vision and asked seriously, Aaron, think back carefully before those unfortunate events begin happening one after another. Did you or your family? Yes, your family encountered any unfortunate events. Okay, let's go. Let's go. Wait, we unsent a message? It's okay. All right. That's okay. It's all right. Chapter 326. We go straight into it. I thought it was the same puppet as last time that started shaking when it got next to those family members, but this is a different puppet. All right, I'm hyped. Let's keep going. Update and let's keep going. Got it. Going nice. We're knock on wood, but we are going at a good pace. We're not praying for bad luck today. We are praying for good luck. Chapter 326, Professional Suggestion. Klein had wanted to ask if Aaron or his family had brought home anything which was relatively more unusual, such as a slightly dirty ragdoll, before the unlucky events befell him. But as soon as the words reached his mouth, he suddenly felt that it was too direct and could easily expose the fact that he knew a lot about mysticism. Although this could be explained away by the fact that he was experienced and knowledgeable, there was no need for him to take the risk. Instead, he took a more roundabout approach and asked Dr. Aaron if his family had suffered the same ill luck. Upon hearing his question, Aaron Cerise carefully recalled and said no, except for the steam locomotive accident that occurred to them as well. They were the same as before. Most of them, they didn't experience anything especially lucky or unlucky. The rest can be said to be of both types, so they can be considered especially unlucky. That's not right. If it was an item that needs to be sealed, like the misfortune cloth puppet, we've never seen it. I think Klein read about it, right? It would wait, hold up. Sorry, I'm thinking out loud. I don't want to read the answer. It's okay, hold up. It would definitely affect people within a certain range. Could it be that Aaron had dripped his blood on it, and the two of them above have established a firm connection? In Klein's spirit vision, Aaron's aura and mood matched his physical and mental state, and there was nothing special about him. He asked after some thought, is there any colleague at the hospital that is unlucky as you? No, so I think I must have been cursed by someone. Aaron pulled at his bow tie, looking anxious and uneasy. Until Talum's curious gaze, Klein thought for a moment and said, before you become unlucky, did you encounter any relatively stranger matters, such as cutting yourself? In folklore, blood is the most powerful medium through which curses can be formed. After I suspected that I was cursed, I have confirmed this point. I have not lost any blood in the past 3 months, Aaron replied with a heavy mood, and he held his knife and fork. That is a little strange indeed. That's a little strange. I can't perform a more complicated divination in front of them. Klein asked again. Then, were there any other strange matters? Aaron, think back carefully. This kind of matter can't happen without a reason. Have you offered anyone recently? Have you offended anyone recently, or have you become an obstacle towards others? Talum echoed with concern. Aaron looked down at the food on the plate and fell into deep thought. Klein didn't stay idle either. He took care of his food before it turned cold and unpleasant. By the time he started enjoying the dessert, Aaron finally raised his head and said, I'm not a very sociable person. I don't have good relationships with my colleagues, but it's hard to believe that they would come up with a way to curse me. Well, after your reminder, I don't... Oh. Well, after your reminder, I do remember something. It might be related to mysticism. What is it? Klein and Talon's spirits were lifted at the same time. Before my continuous bad luck streak, I was in charge of a patient, a child who wasn't even 10 years old. He was very pitiful. Due to some complications, I had to amputate his leg. Aaron nudged his glasses and recalled, I just became a father not too long ago, so Mom always filled with sympathy for misfortune of this child. Every time I checked the ward, I would chat with him, encourage him, and comfort him. After a pause, Aaron's thoughts turned more fluid. I remember that it was the day before his surgery. I specifically went to his ward to look for him, and he was really upset. He was playing tarot cards, which he brought with him when he was admitted to the hospital. His family wasn't even allowed to take them anyways. To take them away. In order to calm him down, I began playing tarot cards with him. Back then, I drew a card. It was the reversed Wheel of Fortune. Yeah, he's playing with tarot cards. That sounds pretty bad. That child looked at me and said with a pure and innocent smile, Doctor, your luck will get worse. Doctor, your luck will get worse. Talon drew a breath and said, why do I feel that such a scene and such words to make my body feel cold? Did the child die on the operating table? Aaron shook his head. The operation was a success. It didn't take long for him to be discharged from the hospital. He even specifically thanked me. So I've never suspected this, but now that I think back, I find that this is the only time in the past 2 months that I have come into contact with something related to mysticism. No matter what, regardless of whether it's useful or not, tarot cards are still used for divination. At some point, a brass coin had appeared in Klein's hand. It was bouncing and rolling at his fingertips, seemingly symbolizing and analyzing the process of a famous detective. That's what he does in the trailer. In the trailer, he did this, right? I remember that. The coin was flicked up and fell in the palm of his hand. Klein glanced out of the corner of his eyes and asked, having ended his thinking, what's that boy's name? Where does he live? Aaron answered without hesitation. His name is Will Accursed. As for where he lives, I don't remember. What is your suggestion, Mr. Detective? Do you know any experts in the field of mysticism? Klein took a sip of his black tea and said with a smile under the expectant gazes of the Aaron and Talon, my suggestion is to go to the cathedral of the deity you believe in, tell the bishop about your recent misfortunes, and then ask him if he has a solution. Aaron, I remember you were a believer of the Evernight goddess, right? Look at him, he's like, what was it called again? He had almost said goddess, but fortunately, he remembered his identity as a detective who believed in the god of steam machinery. However, my prayers to the goddess, my participation in mass, and the donations of money and items were all useless. I think I should find some more capable fortune tellers. Aaron didn't agree with Detective Moriarty's suggestions. Like, bro, he's giving you advice. Listen to him. Talon echoed with a nod. Yes, the deities would care if you were lucky or not. Luck is a blessing and misfortune is a test. Friend, your faith isn't pious enough. Be careful, the Lord of Storms might zap you with a lightning bolt. Klein looked at the two separately and laughed. This suggestion is based on a very simple logic. If, and I mean if, there exists useful and effective mysticism in this world, then the ones who are best at it are definitely the 7 Orthodox churches. If not, they would have long been replaced by other forces who have mastered mysticism. That is a reasonable suggestion. If there isn't such a thing as true mysticism, then finding a fortune teller and witch doctor won't be of any help. It would be better to see if there's a solution to this problem with the help of a relatively high-ranking bishop. Aaron carefully analyzed the situation and finally nodded. That makes sense. Perhaps I will need the bishop's help to pass on the message of the goddess to protect me. No, accurately speaking, with the bishop passing on the message, the Nighthawks will be able to notice the abnormality on you, Klein retorted inwardly. He had no intention of helping Aaron himself, because to solve the problem regarding luck, aside from finding the root cause of everything, he would have to set up a particular ritual. Ignoring the fact that Klein didn't know any real luck enchantment rituals, and even if he did, he would be exposing his beyonder powers to someone he was unfamiliar with, which would increase the risk for no reason. Since I can get the Nighthawks to take up the role of helping you, you no longer need me to do it myself. I just don't know if the problem came from that boy or the tarot cards in his hands. Oh, maybe the tarot cards were a sealed artifact in and of itself. Yeah, you know how like Beyonders use them? Maybe that's like an actual sealed artifact that anybody can use. But, well, maybe the downside is the user gets bad luck, and that's why the kid had to get the leg amputated. Klein shook his head, and like maybe he gives others bad luck, in return he gets bad luck. Klein shook his head, suppressing his greed emotions. At this moment, Aaron had already made up his mind. He looked at Klein and grinned. Thank you, Mr. Moriarty. Although you don't know mysticism, you relied on strict logic to provide the best suggestion. Yes, I don't know mysticism, Klein smiled. Just call me Sherlock, Aaron. Yes, ever since I've stopped being a Nighthawk, the composition of my mysticism knowledge has become stranger and stranger. On one hand, I've grasped quite a few secrets which are related to high sequences and deities. And on the other hand, I only understand the more basic ritualistic magic. Among the more complicated ones, it's like he went from 0 to 100 really quick, and he's missing all the in between. I only know the sacrificial rites and bestowment rituals. As for charms, all I know are those 3. Klein sighed to himself, feeling an urgent need for a more comprehensive and in-depth book of mysticism. As for the knowledge required to separate beyond characteristics from the spiritual corruption of an evil god, he has no clues whatsoever at the moment. After a short afternoon nap at the club, Klein rode in his public carriage to the Rice Circus near the Tussock River in Sherwood Borough. Today wasn't a holiday, nor was it a weekend. There weren't many visitors at the circus, and the clowns that were responsible for entertaining and amusing the visitors all seemed listless. Passing between the Divination Lodge and the tents that sold pies, pancakes, fruit pies, and alcoholic beverages, Klein walked along the edge of the circus and found a small theater. On a blackboard at the entrance, it read non-holiday and weekends, 4 performances a day, 1 hour per performance. The first performance in the afternoon was at 2 o'clock. It had just begun. After buying his ticket, Klein entered the theater and heard his cheers. At that moment, the beast trainer was on stage holding a whip and ordering a black bear to perform in a charmingly naive manner. Next to him lay a tiger with crisscross yellow-black stripes and a seated dark and curly-haired baboon. I just said that. Curly-haired baboon. The black bear rolled awkwardly as the trainer whipped out. I say this guy wanted to give you a slap just a minute ago. In the front row of the rows of seats, someone suddenly shouted loudly, which immediately attracted the laughter of a handful in the audience. Louder music, please, just a bit. Okay, I got you. Oh man, that was funny. I unintentionally said baboon, even though it's baboon. We've been saying that so long. Can you turn the music up a little bit? Yeah, I got you guys. Let's turn it up a bit. I'll turn it up for you. For me, it's still low, but for you guys, yeah. Badoon loading. At that moment, the person who had just spoken shouted again. The tiger wants to bite your neck off. That curly-haired baboon wants to use you as a cushion. Amidst the laughter of the audience, the beast tamers, actions clearly stiffened. Even those words sound like they're causing trouble. What do I detect? A hint of a warning. Klein looked over his shoulder at the speaker in the same row and saw that he was a chubby-faced man in his 30s. This tone, this way, it's kind of familiar. Klein mumbled silently to himself. Who is this? He looked over his shoulders at the speaker in the same row and saw that he was a chubby-faced man in his 30s. This tone, this way, it's kind of familiar. Klein mumbled silently to himself. Do we know any chubby character in his 30s? No. Thinking out loud. Maybe he's reminiscing somebody from the real world. Right? Maybe? Dude, that's awesome. All right, let's keep going, man. Chapter 327 for all our new people. It's your second time? Awesome. Thanks again, Carlos. Thank you. Chapter 327. I read that wrong. Encounter on the road. Time, everything is updated? Yes, everything is updated. Inside the small theater of the Rice Circus, as long as something felt familiar, there was no problem for a seer to recall it. Klein nudged his gold-rimmed glasses up on his nose, leaned back, and murmured something almost soundlessly. Soon after, he pretended to close his eyes to rest for more than 10 seconds. In reality, he had used the help of cognition to quickly fall asleep and be reminded through his dream. There was a huge Discord activity recently? Oh, really? I'll look into it. I didn't know that. I've seen people messages me, so it's probably for that. I'll look at that then. It was a rather dim room with only one candle flickering on the coffee table. The people sitting around it were recently all wearing black hooded robes and iron masks that covered only half of their faces. Deliberately massaging his glabella, Klein opened his eyes and continued watching the beast taming performances. He had interpreted the revelation and knew the source of familiarity. The scene in the dream was the Beyonder gathering organized by old Mystery Eye of Wisdom. Wait, he works at a carnival? Oh, he added the leveling system already. Okay. No, it doesn't. It's not lagging on my end. Yeah, it might have been on your end. Maybe. Reasonable development. Okay, so no, wait. I have wisdom. No, he's not running. He made the comment out loud, so he's attending it. Got it. There is also an apocryphy with a chubby face who enjoyed using sarcasm as a warning. Although he was clearly a kind-hearted fellow, he always gave others the feeling that he deserved a beating. Could it be that apocryphy? That shouldn't be the case. When did he learn beast taming? Damn, man. Look at beast taming in action. According to the confidential records of the Nighthawks, an apocryphy doesn't have the spirit vision like those of the seer pathway who were able to distinguish emotional colors and details. Well, when it comes to the color of the auras, they're actually quite good at it. Klein's thoughts slowly disappeared without affecting his appreciation of the performance on stage. In his spirit vision, the emotional colors of the black bear, the tiger, and the curly-haired baboon were indeed unstable. If there was an additional level of provocation to a certain degree, I read that wrong, they might very well rampage on the spot. This indirectly confirmed that the chubby man who had just spoken wasn't causing the trouble. He seemed to be able to read the thoughts of the three animals and understand their impulses. Having received the warnings, the beast trainer's face darkened with anger, but even so, his actions were instinctively gentler. He was more careful, and the show ended without a hitch. I thought that said another word. After that, there was a simple but comedic skit. Only when it was over was it the magician's turn to perform. This magician wore a tuxedo. He wore a bow tie of the same color as well as a large top hat. Have you guys been to a circus before? The moment had appeared. I've been to like one. I lied. I've been to like two, three. I like them. They're always fun. They're always different. He spat out fire from his mouth, which immediately caused the audience to applaud and cheer. Such a simple trick. Klein, who is like, I could do that in my sleep. Baboon, I know. Hi everyone. No, you're not late, Amma. I was the one that just started randomly. Such a simple trick. Klein, who had excellent eyesight and had watched quite a few magic lesson programs, understood the gist of it with just a quick glance. Next, the magician performed the classic escape act, releasing the flying doves from his hat, pulling out flowers, card tricks, and so on. Klein thought he could easily see through every one of the magician tricks, but he was surprised to discover that at some point he actually failed to do so because his attention had been drawn to where the magician wished it to be, causing him to ignore the key details. He clearly doesn't have any beyonder powers, but his technique is still able to fool my eyes, huh? The key point is grasping attention. The magician's second rule is fully divert a target's attention, thus achieving the desired effects. Klein made a guess in his mind, which he sure if it was right or wrong. It needed him to act it out to receive feedback. At this moment, the magician's performance came to an end. The audience weren't stingy with their warm applause and cheers. The atmosphere in the theater reached its peak in the afternoon. The third rule. A magician's performance requires the applause of the audience for his performer. That's a good rule. Okay. Klein muttered to himself in a half-joking and half-guessing manner in silence. So even maybe him being a good detective would reward an applause, right? Just like, you know how like Sherlock Holmes in like the show, like, oh, Sherlock, you're so good. Maybe like him being a good detective results in applause, and that helps him digest the magician potion. So he won't necessarily be doing magic. Actually, no, yeah, he would be doing a magical act as a detective. I get it. All right. The third rule, a magician's it doesn't necessarily state what kind of performance. A magician performance requires the applause of the audience for his performance. Klein muttered to himself in a half-joking and half-guessing manner in silence. Shortly after 3 o'clock, he pulled out the collar of his black double-breasted front coat and left the small theater. He didn't try to come into contact with the chubby man who had been suspected to be the apocryphy, and only secretly remembered his appearance. Soliciting him suddenly might result in extreme reactions. He took a tracked public carriage back to Mink Street. The carriage was divided into 2 floors, and each of them had a few passengers. According to his usual practice, Klein chose the spot next to the window on the first floor. The carriage proceeded and stopped from time to time. Klein, who had closed his eyes to recall the inspiration he had just had, suddenly felt his heart palpitate. He became sober and rational. The reaction was like something had forcibly intruded into his dream or channeled his spirit. At this moment, he clearly knew that he was no longer in the real world. As some rich with experience, he pretended to be unconcerned. He looked around and saw that the gentleman in tuxedo on the top hat to his left was still flipping through the newspaper. There were 2 children who were being reprimanded by a vexed woman in a light blue dress for being disobedient troublemakers. Besides her, people were chewing on bread or drinking tea than they had brought with them. Everything was the same as before. However, when Klein quietly activated his spirit vision, the passengers didn't emit any of the corresponding auras or emotions. They don't have ether bodies. They're clearly talking, eating bread, and reading newspapers, but none of them have any signs of life. Like a magician, like Megamind says, presentation. Does Megamind say that? Are you talking about from the blue dude from the movie Megamind? Hi, what's up? What's up, guys? Hello, hello. I see you guys. Hello, hello. However, they also have no auras. As the carriage moved forward rather slowly, Klein became more and more anxious, not understanding what had happened. I skipped a line. Is this an illusion, or did they just suddenly die, or are they just moving according to the inertia of their lives? Klein tried to remain calm as he looked out the window and saw the carriages and pedestrians passing by. It was still an afternoon sea. However, they also had no aura colors. As the carriage moved forward rather slowly, Klein became more and more serious, not understanding what had just happened. He lowered his head and examined himself. He saw a clear spirituality luster, which was completely different from the people around him. At that moment, he suddenly heard an angry roar. It didn't sound like it came from a human. Klein looked up and saw a large black dog on the street. Its sharp white teeth were... Is it the devil dog? It's sharp white teeth, but he doesn't have the master key. Did Aaron's bad luck transfer to him? Haley just got here? Yeah, well, yeah. Nah, we did. Everything is updated accordingly. You know, we're good. Its sharp white teeth were stained with traces of blood and rust. It has huge devil dog that has... Wait, it was a huge devil dog that had committed heinous crimes. The black dog quickly swelled into a tall devil. It had bat-like wings on its back and goat horns, filled with mysterious patterns that grew from its head. It looked up at the sky and said in this devil's language, corruption. Almost as soon as it opened its mouth, Klein confirmed that it was real because it possessed aura and emotion colors, while strong spirituality lusters were being emitted from before. Following the howls of the huge double dog, a few illusionary pedestrians exploded and turned into a black mist that filled the air, blocking his line of sight. However, Klein could vaguely see that there were quite a few real people with auras and colors in mid-air and around him. They were using beyonder powers which emitted spirituality lusters. What's going on? Ordinary people are illusionary, but the beyonders are real. Have the Nighthawks and Mandated Pushers found the Devil Dog and used a sealed artifact to create a battle environment? Imagine we skipped. Dude, I think we have to play boss music soon. The sealed artifact is only aimed at beyonders and it has no effect on normal people. Thus, I, who had just happened to pass by, was pulled in out of bad luck. Klein's mind raced as he roughly guessed what had happened to him. What a ridiculous disaster. Just as he was sighing with emotions, he suddenly heard a blood-curdling shriek. A blood-curdling scream and a loud scream. 3 screams? The black gas that screened his vision suddenly disappeared. Oh, the illusionary people were put there to lure out the devil dog. And the gigantic devil dog fell heavily onto the ground. Its body was divided into 2 halves, and all the light in the air converged on something, making it look like a clean, pure moon shining down on the dark environment. The gigantic devil dog tenaciously roared again, and its body suddenly exploded. Using its soul and flesh as fuel, it ignited blue and red flames that soared into the sky. However, the flames lost all of their brightness as soon as they reached mid-air, having been absorbed by the bright and resplendent moon-like object. It disappeared without a trace, and the huge devil dog died so simply and completely, not even leaving a speck of it behind. So powerful, as Klein was sighing, he suddenly thought of something. Would those official beyonders discover that he, another wild beyonder, was sitting in the carriage, different from the other illusionary people in the surrounding area? His heart tightened as his scalp went numb. He pulled out a paper figurine, and with a shake he transformed it into himself. A copy that was without any aura or emotional colors. Ah, so it blends in with them. As for him, with the help of his substitution spell, he hid in the paper figurine's shadow. He can hide in shadows? I'm sorry. Unhinged. Was this ever brought up? Wait. As for him, with the help of the substitution spell, He hid in the paper figuring shadow. At this moment, Klein heard a light snort from across the street. The snort was clearly filled with anger and indignation. All right, we got the music. This is starting to get a little hype. Okay. Who is it? It doesn't seem like the sound. It doesn't seem like the sound an official Beyonder will make. Klein was puzzled, but he didn't dare to dispel his double and peek his head out to look. Following which, a few pairs of eyes swept across the crowd, not stopping for even a moment. When all this faded away, Klein saw that the void around him had cracked and shattered like glass. Then the feeling of reality endued him, and he knew that he was back in the real world. After removing the double, he sat back in his seat. The passengers in the carriage were doing their respective deeds, reading newspapers, and he's back in the real world. Wait, should I pause the music now? Reading newspapers, chewing bread, and scolding children. It was no different from before, but in Klein's vision, they had regained their auras and their emotional colors. In addition, compared to earlier, the tracked carriage had clearly moved forward by quite a distance. Whoa, wait, so it seems like in that special battle environment earlier, time and space are synchronized with reality. If that battle had continued for a long period of time, then the carriage would have left the area of influence, leaving me alone there. Alone there? That would be an obvious exposure. Fortunately, Backland is the capital of capitals and the land of hopes. There are high sequence of Beyonders from 3 major churches residing here. Klein thought with a lingering sense of fear. He had originally thought that even if they had locked onto their target, it would still take the Nighthawks, mandated pushers, and others several days to find the Black Devil Dog. Moreover, there was on the premise that the dog hadn't left Backland. There was something certain, because leaving Backland would mean stepping out of the range of the ritual, and the advancement would fail. And to the devil, the negative impact of a failed ritual would cause it, who was already struggling at the edge of the bloodless, to immediately lose control. Who would have thought that just after one night and half a day, the gigantic double dog would be discovered, executed, and cleansed? I don't think they took him out. Terrifying, this is Backland. This is the true power of the 3 churches. A Sequence 6 Beyonder who's just about to advance was merely exposed and had left behind the tiniest of traces. Yet he was quickly found and killed so easily. This is a devil that can sense danger ahead of time. From the looks of it, some sealed artifact perfectly hinders his trait. In the future, I must be even more careful. So he doesn't run into this artifact. In the future, I must be even more careful. Klein felt that he had learned a great lesson. At this moment, he learned his place. He's like, I must be hidden until I am a high sequence Beyonder. At this moment, he remembered the strange snort he had heard earlier. It seems to be the companion... A companion? More like Stanton Isengard. It seemed to be the companion of that gigantic double dog. Or maybe we still get Jack the Ripper. Its master. He was actually not discovered. Maybe he's controlling the dog, so in return he's actually getting the kill so he can advance. Oh, maybe he's the beast tamer pretending to be a devil. After we just learned about the beast tamers, maybe he's been using the dog as a beast tamer to give off the illusion of a devil. Perhaps the final explosion... Oh, I skipped the place. It seems to be companion of that gigantic devil dog, its master. He was actually not discovered. Perhaps the final explosion of the gigantic devil dog was secretly orchestrated by him. Of course, it's also possible that he's a member of the secret organization that is unsatisfied with the official Beyonders. Klein abruptly looked out the window on the opposite side of the carriage. All he saw were people walking past looking ordinary. They either wore tweed clothes, half-top hats, or bright long skirts. He couldn't tell if there was anything wrong with them. Oh, I think it's a beast tamer pretending to be a devil. And the beast tamer is actually Jack the Ripper. Update? Let's update. Let's update and let's continue. Yes. Chapter 328. He that touches pitch shall be defiled. That does not sound good. The wheels of the carriage press down, and my music is a little low. No, it's a little high for you guys, right? I can see it. The wheels of the carriage pressed down on the track as the horses dragged it along. The heavy carriage steadily advanced, and as soon as they were moving away from the street as though nothing had happened, with a normal expression, Klein held onto his cane and waited until the tracked public carriage passed 2 stations before he got off ahead of time. He took a carriage detour and slowly headed back to the palace where the gigantic double dog had been killed. He wasn't looking for its Beyonder characteristics, as it was impossible for the top experts of the church to not know about this matter. They would have definitely taken it away long ago. He also was investigating the source of that slight snort. After all, with so much time having passed by, the carriages moved on the streets and the people that were coming and going, how could there be any clues left behind? Even divination would fail to obtain an answer. Klein's purpose was to look at the subtle details that remain along the street and to see the nature of the sealed artifact that had been created, the strange environment for that battle, so as to prepare for what might happen in the future. This is a magician's acting. He sighed silently as he walked under the gray sky along the edge of the table. Along the edge of the street, which was marked by the gas lamps. The reason why he had to wait 2 stops before getting off and taking a detour was because he was worried that there would be an official Beyonder who would sweep the battlefield in secret. He didn't want to meet them, so he tried his best not to. Klein, who was dressed decently and holding on to a cane, took some time before he returned to hug the Devil Dog's place of death. Oh, before he returned to the huge Devil Dog's place of death. However, there were no traces of its presence in the street, and the passerby clearly didn't know that a fierce Beyonder battle had just taken place here. That sealed artifact is really magical. It's even more powerful than large-scale hypnosis. Klein activated his spirit vision and slowed his footsteps like a gentleman on an outing rather than on an errand. It took him over half an hour to complete his tour of the area, but his efforts with his spirit vision was futile. There was nothing out of the ordinary about his target area. However, Klein's spiritual perception sensed one thing. It scoped at his boundaries. When I entered the block and left from another direction, I felt a subtle illusionary feeling, as if I entered a different world from another world. The real world? That is to say, the sealed artifact's scope of influence can reach at least 1 block. Oh, I see this foreshadowing. If sealed artifacts can pull you into different worlds, who's to say that there's like a sequence 0 sealed artifact that pulls in Beyonders, or it pulls in people that have like this Beyonder characteristic, or like maybe there's a sealed artifact that's pulled in Roselle and Klein. Who's to say? Okay. And its upper limit is, for what reason, I don't know, right? And its upper limit is temporarily unclear. Klein stood outside the target street and nodded thoughtfully before returning. Like, maybe it wasn't him just doing the luck enchantment ritual. Maybe him using the luck enchantment ritual was like a mystical item, like Audrey and Alger used at the beginning, right? But Klein was technically the one that pulled them, right? He pulled the red star, easy cooking time. You know how, like, he pulled the star, right? But they were just like, Audrey was coincidentally looking at a mystical mirror, and then Alger was coincidentally looking at like a mystical bottom. Who's to say like Klein just coincidentally read a luck enchantment ritual, but the person who used the sealed artifact was the one that pulled him? I think that's a good theory. I think I said that right. I think I got my thoughts out right. I think we're good. It took him. I lost my damn place. Oh wait. That sealed artifact is really magical. It's even more powerful than large-scale hypnosis. Let me read this part. Klein activated his spirit vision and slowed his footsteps like a gentleman on an outing rather than on an errand. It took him over half an hour to complete his tour of the area, but his efforts with his spirit vision were futile. There was nothing out of the ordinary about his target area. However, Klein's spirit perception sensed one thing: its scope and its boundaries. When I entered the block and left from another direction, I felt a subtle and illusionary feeling, as if I entered a different world from another world. That's kind of on the nose. That is to say that sealed artifact scope of influence can reach at least 1 block. Who's to say it can't reach an entire world? And its upper limit, it's temporarily unclear. Its upper, right here, he even says it. Its upper limit is temporarily unclear. Klein stood outside the target street and nodded thoughtfully before returning. He went to a decent cafe, ordered a cup of South coffee, and sat down by the window. As he drank the fluid with a rich aroma, he observed the street outside, which was beginning to bustle as time passed, hoping to see any changes. Unfortunately, what he had been looking forward to didn't happen. Of course, he wasn't without gains. At the very least, he confirmed that a magician never performed unprepared, which was one of the rules of acting. He felt that the characteristics of the subtle percipient in his body stirred a little. In the evening, Klein stopped. I read that wrong. Klein stopped his observations and returned to Mink Street in a public carriage. At this moment, the gas lamps on both sides of the road had already been lit, illuminating the slightly wet cement ground. Ow, my nail. with withered leaves that fell from the trees along the road with a blue hue. Holding his cane, Klein strolled past the house of lawyer Jurgen and strolled to Unit 15. As he was walking, he suddenly thought of something. He had finished all the ingredients at home. If he went back now, he wouldn't be able to cook dinner. Should I go to the meat shop and fruit shop, or find a restaurant to fill my stomach first? Klein hesitated for a moment, then he finally decided to take a break tonight and eat something ready-made. Many of dishes in the world were made quite simply and very quickly, so it didn't become a situation where an hour was spent cooking for 5 minutes of eating. However, there was still a certain amount of work to be done. Furthermore, he had to wash the dishes and wash the knives and forks himself. After touching his wallet, Klein turned around and walked in the direction of the area. According to his memory, there were restaurants. Once again, he passed the house of Laura Jurgens. Standing behind the open Oriole window and looked at the confused expression Detective Moriarty had, Jurgen raised his voice and said, "Mr. Moriarty, did you forget your key again? Maybe. Or did you drop your key? Why is he saying again?" Klein replied with a chuckle, "No, not really." Jurgen solemnly nodded his head. "Then why don't you come to my place? You can return when it's completely dark after we have dinner." Klein hesitated for a second and smiled. "It will be my honor." When he entered the Black Cat, Brody was licking his paws in the corner. That sounds like bad luck. Jurgen didn't make much small talk as he stepped into the kitchen. After Klein had hung up his coat and hat and put away his black cane, he stepped into the dining room and saw that the table was already covered with food, blanket steaks and mashed potatoes of the same color. He wasn't surprised by this. This was how Mr. Doris Laura Jurgen's grandmother cooked in her old age. The food didn't look appetizing, but they were delicious. She's a good chef. Klein sat in front of Jurgen, smiled, and made a small talk. "Where were you? Were you about to have dinner?" "Yes, it's a habit of mine to look at the scenery outside before my meal. It allows my thoughts to spread with boundaries." Jurgen spread out his napkin and picked up his fork and knife. Klein looked around in puzzlement and asked, "Where is Mr. Doris? Miss Doris?" That's not good. Oh, he's the killer. Oh, she was the 13th victim. "Where's Miss Doris?" Jurgen sighed and replied seriously, "The weather's getting colder and colder." Oh, he's avoiding the question. "Her chronic lung problems are back." Oh, wait. So she has no choice but to be admitted to the hospital for a while. Never mind. "May God bless her." Klein drew the triangular sacred emblem of the Church of God's Seeming Machinery on his chest unfamiliarly. Then he cut a piece of steak and forked it before stuffing it into his mouth. At that moment, he suddenly thought of a problem and hurriedly asked, "So you were the one who prepared dinner?" "Of course, it was done a few minutes ago." Jurgen answered simply. "If it isn't the work of the great chef, Miss Doris, then this food," the corner of Klein's mouth twitched. He held back the fear in his heart and still bit down on the... Shut up. No. No way, dude. Wait, no. I've watched Hannibal. There's no way I just read this. Then he cut a piece of steak and forked it before stuffing it into his mouth. At that moment, he suddenly thought of a problem and hurriedly asked, "So you were the one who prepared dinner?" "Of course, it was done a few minutes ago." Jurgen answered simply, "No." Wait, I don't even want to read chat right now. Hold on, wait, we're almost done with the chapter. "Of course, it was done a few minutes ago." Jurgen answered simply, If it isn't the work of the great chef's Miss Doris, then this food..." The corner of Klein's mouth twitched. He held back the fear in his heart and still bit down on the small piece of steak of his silver fork, slowly chewing on it. His brows frowned a little as he forcefully swallowed the food. He squeezed his smile and asked, "Why did you prepare 2 servings in advance?" "One serving was prepared to be taken to the hospital for my grandmother." Jurgen glanced up at Klein. "I'll make another one later." "I'll make another one later." Stop. Wait. No. "I'll make another one later." Wait. This is the doctor, right? Wait. Hold up. This is not Chainsaw Man? Wait, no, you're talking about Fire Force. Wait, is this is the doctor, right? Wait, okay. Aaron is the doctor, Jurgen is the lawyer. Okay, wait. I thought what was happening right now was the doctor realized what Klein was doing. It's the lawyer. I'm sorry. Okay, I was like, wait, is that why he cut the kid's leg? I was like, is that why he went in surgery? Okay, everything is fine. Oh, wait, I thought this was the doctor, and then it's like we found out he's like operating on people, and like he has bad luck. I was like, oh shit. It's like, is this Hannibal all over again? So like we're not. It's like we're not fighting Jack the Ripper. We're fighting Hannibal in this volume. Oh man. So that's how it is. To be polite, Klein secretly. Okay, now this is a lot nicer. Okay, so that's how it is. To be polite, Klein secretly took a deep breath and steeled himself, as though prepared to do battle with the food in front of him and finish it. By the time he was finished, Jurgen still had a tiny bit left. The senior solicitor put down his fork and knife, picked up the glass beside him, took a sip of red wine, and asked without expression, "How's it? Which dish do you like the most? I know there's still a large gap between my skills and my grandmother's, but it shouldn't be too exaggerated." Mr. Lawyer, I suspect you have problems with your sense of taste besides facial minfopy. Can't you realize your standards? Klein smiled, moved his head from left to right, and said, "The white bread isn't bad. That was bought from the dough bakery." Jurgen buried his head and finished the rest of the food. After drinking the remaining wine, he thought for a moment and said, "Detective Moriarty, I want to entrust you with a simple task." "What is it?" Klein kept drinking water. "The mashed potatoes were too salty. My grandmother's been in hospital lately. I might not be able to return because of my cases. This will lead to Brody being hungry." Jurgen glanced at the black cat. "I want you to feed Brody when I'm not back. Clean up his litter box and play with him for a while. He loves to be scratched under the chin." "Oh, yes, every night at 10. Yes, every night at 10. If there's no light in the house and it's dark, you can come in, too slowly every time, until my grandmother comes home." Klein saw the solemn and prime look on Jurgen's face. He smiled and said, "It's a simple task. The reward is quite generous. I have no reason to reject it." As he spoke, he turned to look at Brody, the black cat, and smiled at it. Brody slowly turned his head and faced Klein with his back. Klein's smile couldn't help but freeze on his face. After drinking his fill, Klein excused himself from Jurgen's place. He strolled back to his rented house in the complete dark streets. By this time, the people who had finished their work had already returned home and were enjoying their dinner. There were few pedestrians on the streets and not many carriages. I'm so confused. It went from Hannibal to "You are not the best cook." I thought this was some crazy setup right now. There were very few pedestrians on the streets at night and not many carriages. It was very quiet. Walking under the light of the gas lamp, Klein, who had no urgent desire to return, slowed down so that the black shadow at his feet. When he passed by the Samirs, he saw through the oriel window that the interior was brightly lit. People were moving back and forth, and the sounds of the chatter and laughing could be heard. As for the next door, 15 Mink Street, it was dark and silent. With a sigh, Klein quickened his pace, took out his key, and opened the door. Before he went in, he checked on the box out of habit, and found another letter lying inside. Who sent it? Klein took out the letter and glanced at it under the light of the street lamp. No stamps. It looks like Isengard Stanton's handwriting. Why is he sending another one? He nodded slightly, went inside, closed the door, switched on the light, and opened the letter. The great detective Isengard said in the letter, "I'm very pleased to inform you that the murderer has been found and killed on the spot. The police think that our work is worth at least half the bounty. They should be distributed it to me this week. When that happens, I'll invite you and our friends to come over and share this bounty." Isengard received the news so quickly. He sure has a close relationship with the Beckland police. Oh, it's without a stump. That means that he got somewhere to deliver it directly. Someone to deliver it quickly. The Lowen Kingdom's postal system isn't that efficient. How could a letter sent in the afternoon arrive in the evening? Klein sighed and put down the letter and got ready to change into the outfit before heading out. With the serial murders out of the way and the situation in Buckland easing, so we live happily ever after this volume, right? He could try to do a couple things. For example, find Casper's and Braveheart's bar and contact Maric to see if the Beyonders who control zombies and Miss Sharron had any books regarding mysticism. If my guess is right, they should be defectors of the he is so smart. They should be defectors of the Rose School of Thought. They were previously in an official organization, and they must know a lot of mysticism knowledge. And now I have enough money to buy them. Klein touched his wallet and thought in anticipation. You guys were scaring me, man. Hold up. Let me update this quickly. We weren't doing anything. That was cuttlefish. So why was Klein saying like he's taking a bite and getting ready for battle? I thought it's like Jurgen was gonna be the owner of the demon dog. I thought that's what was being set up. Because Cuttlefish is really good at making you think this is going to be like the main, like, bad guy of the volume. And then it's like a completely different person. The food was gross. That was it. He just ate bad food. So the whole suspense was him eating bad food. He was afraid that Jurgen was not a good cook. Bro, I thought he was afraid because he cooked his grandma, bro. Oh my goodness. I was like, oh, she's at the hospital. And then for a second, like, wait, hospital. And then for a second, it slipped up in my mind and I thought Jurgen was the doctor. And I'm like, wait, is that why he's doing, like, is that why he operated on the kid? And like, he had to amputate the leg, easy as cooked? Bro, I was like, yeah, I was like, R.I.P. Grammy, dude. I was like, it was just fucking bad food. It's like when I remember accidentally spoiling myself and reading the chapter Nightmare. So I thought it was gonna be like some crazy biblical fight with Dunn Smith, R.I.P. And then it just turned out him stealing his food. It just turned out he was stealing Klein's food. Cuttlefish is really good at, like, what's the word? Like, suspending your disbelief? What's the word? Or is it? I don't know, man. But so far, all I know is he's really good at making you think this is gonna be the bad guy, and then it's not. Like, so many times in Volume 1, I'm like, oh, this is the main bad guy, and then it's like, we take him out right away, and we go into the main bad guy. Right? But I like it. Like, the whole thing with Instant Will, and, like, the true creator Spawn, is like, not once did I think that was gonna happen. And that was wild. So I thought, like, oh, this was, like, what was being set up right now. I like it. I'm glad it was just bad food. Rip my best friend Lenavus, man. You guys go way back, huh? Like, yeah, man, we go way back in the Bishop days. Like, we be writing everything in the pen, foreseeing everything. Lord of the Mysteries, indeed, truly Lord of the Mysteries. All right, let's update and let's keep going, man. Chapter 329 is called Claw Marks. There are 2 dogs. Backland Bridge area. What, like, who's to say there isn't just 1 dog, right? Ah, I see what's going on. The music's a little loud, I can see it. Backland Bridge area, Braveheart's bar. Klein pressed down on the cap of his hat. Cap of his cap? Klein pressed down the cap of his head, carefully protecting the wall in his inside pocket of the grayish-blue worker's jacket. He walked around the customers who were surrounding the boxing ring and headed for the bar. On the way, he looked around and he didn't see the black market arms dealer, Kasper's Kalinin. He's either playing cards or playing billiards. Klein nodded to himself, sat down in the bar, and said to the bartender, half and half. He had seen someone drink this type of alcoholic beverage the last time, and he felt that it's likely suited his palate. Yeah, we're good. Yeah, we're updated. Yeah, we're good. He had seen someone drink this type of alcoholic beverage the last time, and he felt that it's likely suited his palate. At least it's better than pure malt beer. I don't like beer too, by the way. I don't like beer. I prefer, like, shots. Klein thought to himself. The bartender raised his head, so I respect Klein's choice. The bartender raised his head and glanced at him. Which 2 alcoholics do you want to mix? Different choices, different prices. The typical one will do. The last time he saw someone drink it, the person had used alcohol of the worst quality. The whole glass of half and half was only worth 2.5 pence. 4.5 pence. The bartender watched as Klein arranged the brass coming out of the bar and then went back to mixing. He said in passing, you here for Kasper's. He's not here anymore. His business has been snatched. Huh. We have snatchers? Okay. Yeah, I know. I read that wrong, Zen. Huh. Klein didn't expect such an answer. Before the bartender could reply, a man with a protruded mouth next to him laughed and said, yes, we've chased Kasper away. Huh? How can a lame old man like him do such a business? If you have anything you need, feel free to come to us, find our boss. A gang war. Klein subconsciously came up with this idea, wanting to reject the man's suggestion. However, he soon thought of another possibility. Could it be that the Royal School of Thought had deliberately sought out a gang to suppress Kasper so as to force Maric and Miss Sharron to jump into a trap? Dude, he is so good. So you're telling me we're going to fight the Rose School of Thought and recruit Maric and Miss Sharron? Yet, like, we save them and then they're indebted to us. And they're like, you know what? I'm gonna follow you around. Like, you're a good guy. And then they help out with, like, his detective agency. Just like how... Oh, perhaps I'm speculating a lot. Just like how the Nighthawks had the Blackthorn Security Company, this is like their front, like Sherlock Moriarty detective front. Oh, that is so hype! Wait, that is so fucking cool. If that happens, Cuttlefish is the GOAT. If that doesn't happen, he stole the GOAT, but I'm gonna be a little sad. Yes, it's quite possible Casper's had been working here as a black market arms dealer for a long time. Wow, I got lightheaded saying that. He's definitely not someone who can be chased away just like that. A while ago, because of a series of murderers, the atmosphere in the whole of Backland was rather tense, and the Rose School of Thought or other hidden factions wouldn't dare to recklessly kill or use spirit mediumship on Maric and Miss Sharron, even if they found him. But now that the devil is gone, there's no reason for them to be hidden. This would result in a lot of bloodshed, and since they obviously only had a few suspects and are unable to confirm anyone else having a way to contact Miss Sharron or Maric for the time being, Klein swallowed the words he was about to say and asks instead, "Can I first get a quote before deciding whether or not to purchase?" He planned to observe the faction made up of ordinary people who had taken over Braveheart's bar black market. If he discovered any problems, then he could use them as a favor to give Casper, Sharron, and Maric. Dude, I'ma like these characters if they join the crew. Oh snap! You know who I thought was gonna join Klein's crew as a detective agency? The little kid in the beginning of the series. I thought he was gonna join, but maybe it's Casper, Sharron, and Maric, or maybe just Sharron and Maric, and then Casper's he's been yeeted, like off screen, right, by the Rose School. In any case, Klein didn't want any conflict. He only planned on observing via normal process, so there was no risk. Yes, the only requirement is the man made a zipping motion as his hand in front of his protruding mouth. No problem. Don't say anything. No problem. As soon as Klein answered, he saw the first half and half in front of him, and the copper coins had been taken away by the bartender. Without any intention of wasting, he tipped his head and drank it. His brows gradually frowned. Furred? Cooking? Clip a ship it? Clip a ship a send it. We should do a clip section on Discord, just so I can recall them. It's not what I thought it would be. The taste of the spirit is too heavy. The grape flavors are too mild. Klein put down his glass and followed the man to the third billiard room where Casper's used to stay in. He was about to reach the door. He suddenly thought of something. As someone who doesn't know much, even I can guess that this is a trap. I didn't even think it was a trap. Maybe it's the Rose School. This is a trap to lure more people besides Sharron and Maric. As someone who doesn't know much, even I can guess that this is a trap. I wonder if Miss Sharron and Maric, who would have been hunted for so long, know about it. They definitely wouldn't appear. However, Casper knows more than one Beyonder. He has connections with several different circles of Beyonders, and he might be able to get other helpers. They would complicate things. At that moment, the man with protruding mouth stopped at the doorway of the billiard room, and the distracted Klein almost bumped into him. He pointed inside and said, "Don't talk nonsense later. Our boss doesn't have a good temper. Everyone in the Buckland Bridge area in Eastboro knows this." All right, Klein nodded. Satisfied, the man with the protruding mouth turned and pushed open the billiard room's door. As the door opened, Klein saw a figure hanging in the air, gently swaying. Is it Maric? It was a burly man with a full beard. There was a rope tied around his neck, and a rope that was tied in a dead knot. His feet were off the ground, the tip of his toes were protruding out, and his face was purple. He wore a contorted expression. "Boss." The man with the protruding mouth cried out in disbelief. As soon as the tension in Buckland's atmosphere disappears, someone takes action. Klein tilted his head and glanced at the subordinate. He then solemnly drew a triangular sacred emblem on his chest. "May he find peace with God. I hope his temper is cursed as a result." The man with the protruding mouth didn't even hear what he said. He suddenly shouted, "Boss, murderer." Boss is dead. They killed the boss? Klein took... Wait. Oh, I thought the boss did that to the person. Oh, so the guy... The unalive dude was the boss? Klein took 2 steps back as a result of the loud and shrill voice, as he also activated his spirit vision to take a look inside the room. There was nothing special other than the scattered billiard balls all over the place. Did the Beyonder from Casper's do it? What... That's the... I thought the boss did that. I'm like, look at... who's this big shot gonna be? Man, he's just an average Joe. He wasn't even important. Did a Beyonder from Casper's do it? What would the faction who planted the trap do? If there was... So it's not a trap. So they were just trying to, like, take over. If there was actually such a trap, Klein quietly moved away and slunk away into the crowd where the other gang members swarmed over. He glanced at the kitchen of the Braveheart's bar and with some thought went over and familiarly passed through the through the back door. As soon as he pushed open the non-so-heavy wooden door, Klein felt a cold wind blowing against him, which caused him to shiver. And amidst the cold wind was a faint smell of blood. He listened for a moment but saw nothing. He took out his penny and flicked it up. The landing sound was cut off by the wind, and Klein looked down at the copper penny in his palm, confirming that it was heads. Putting the coin away, he carefully walked forward, heading into the direction that the spiritual perception told him to. He walked to a dark corner where there wasn't any illumination from the street lamps. The smell of blood suddenly became stronger. With the help of the weak moonlight that penetrated through the clouds, Klein almost gasped when he saw what was in front of him. The floor here was littered with bloody thighs, calves, boots, ribs, a heart, armed eyeballs, and other human parts. On the wall hung a huge portion of pale red intestines. Bro, what am I reading? The boss lived for 0.20 chapters. The background was a large patch of bright red with milky white markings. Well, let me reread the description of this place, man. The floor here was littered with bloody thighs, calves, boots, ribs. It's an eating ground. A heart, arms, eyeballs, and other human parts. On the wall hung portions of pale red intestines. It's a meat room. The music picked up at the right time. I think it did pick up at the right time. The floor here... Oh, I read this. Seeing this, Klein felt that he was looking at a slaughterhouse specifically prepared for humans. Is the murderer afraid that the Nighthawk's mandated punishers and others are too idle? This is so exaggerated that the police would immediately transfer the case to them. Klein muttered in his mind to resist the discomfort caused by the scents. He walked around the blood and approached the opposite wall. To his surprise, there were quite a few deep scratches. It was like a thick and sharp... Oh, this was the Devil Dog's place. It was like a thick and sharp claw that forcefully scratched out a mark. The claw similar to the one the Devil Dog had after its transformation. Could it be that there's another one? Did I not call that there was another one, or did I not call that? Could it not be that yet? No, no, no. I know what's going on. Klein suddenly came to a realization. The deceased must be the Beyonder. The deceased must be the Beyonder who killed the bar's gang leader. He was finished off by the faction who had set up the trap. According to the Little Sun's description, I've always suspected that the faction is a rogue school of thought because they grasp the prisoner pathway, which is also the mutant pathway. And one type of mutant was the werewolf. Wait. I don't know what's going on. So it wasn't a devil dog, but a werewolf? This was in line with the traces of the crime scene before him. It also indirectly proves that Miss Sharron and Maric are defectors of the rogue school of thought. Klein calmly... Wait. No. I'm thinking of something else. My bad. Sorry. I am off the mark with that. Klein calmly retreated out of the scene one step at a time. During this process, he confirmed that there weren't any Beyonders characteristics present. Of course, it was possible that it hadn't appeared yet. Then he turned and walked towards another street, intending to get someone to inform the police, lest such a scene frighten the commoners and make them suspect that Buckland had been infiltrated by some ferocious beast. Because he didn't want to get in trouble over greed, Klein didn't wait for the possibility of Beyonder characteristics appearing. Just as he reached the end of the alley, he suddenly saw a brown carriage slowly approaching in the night. The carriage didn't continue to move forward like the other carriages. Instead, it stopped right in front of Klein. Klein narrowed his eyes as he prepared to do battle. However, whether it was his spirituality, intuition as a seer, or the battle senses of a clown, neither of them gave him a warning. So it's safe. At this moment, the window of the carriage opened, revealing a pale face which wore a hint of madness to it. Its brown eyes seemed to conceal a deep malice. Maric. Klein recognized him. It was Maric, Miss Sharron's companion who controlled up. So Sharron is cool. Okay. He's chill. We're good. We saved him. It was Maric, Miss Sharron's companion who controlled zombies. He was only wearing a white shirt and a black vest, and he didn't seem to be afraid of the cold at all. He gestured for Klein to board the carriage. For a moment, Klein hesitated, wanting to use his spirit pendulum to divine right there on spot. At this moment, a figure appeared behind Maric. She wore a complex Sharron. She wore a complex black regal dress and a small soft hat. Oh, they're gonna hire Klein, aka Sherlock Moriarty. It was the blonde Miss Sharron with blue eyes. I love this crew. I'm loving this crew. I'm feeling the chemistry already. She can easily do me harm if she wants to. She can directly come out of the walls behind me. Klein thought for a moment, then he deliberately took 2 steps forward casually. He opened the carriage door and took note of it. After he sat down, the carriage began to move slowly. It was unknown where its destination was. Why did you come here? Sharron asked simply. Klein answered frankly, I want to contact the both of you and ask if you have any books of mysticism. It would be best if they went in depth, and if you know, as you know, I lack such knowledge. Maric continued looking. It's like, we'll just train you, bro. Just tag along with us. Miss Bodyguard, I'm loving this chemistry already. Average mafia boss lifespan. Yeah. The average lifespan. Yep, there you go, brother. Maric continued looking over with malice-filled eyes as he said in a slightly hoarse and low voice, we do not have a lot of knowledge regarding mysticism, such as a Shaman King Clarimon's Book of Secrets, but what can you use to trade for it? Shaman King, which pathway and sequence is that? As these thoughts flashed past his mind, Klein deliberated his tone and said, I can trade it with gold pounds, or do you need anything else? The pale but exquisite-looking Sharron looked at him and replied stoically, help. We'll use your help as a barter. Did I not say they were going to come to him for help, or did I not say that? Have I not been on the dot today, or have I not been on the dot? I think we're on a roll. Let's keep going, man. Chapter 330. Let's update. Thank you, Mr. Useful. All right, we'll continue from right here. Chapter 330. Sharron and Marric's philosophy. Okay. Help. Klein repeated the word silently and was momentarily a little stumped. Back when Sharron had taken on the mission of protecting him for 3 days, it was mostly because of the money. For a Sequence 5 expert to be willing to take on such a mission was in itself a low probability. It could be chanced upon, but it wasn't something that could be forced. Furthermore, back then, Klein was desperately trying to save himself and was so frantic that he wasn't willing to give up any sliver of hope. As such, he still felt very grateful for being able to receive the help of such a powerful beyonder, even if it was because of the money. However, that was all. He wouldn't recklessly interfere in an unknown, dangerous situation in complete disregard of his own strength and circumstances for the sake of the other party. Klein's original plan was that the mysticism knowledge from Little Sun could basically be verified as belonging to the pre-cataclysm era. At that thought, the ancient gods who wielded power, the current 7 gods and evil gods, didn't seem to have an overlap with each other. So there's no overlap. So it was possible that the 2 mysticism systems were definitely hugely different. 2 different systems, but at the end of the day, it's the same pathway with different names. So even if he knew the details, he didn't dare to carelessly try it out. He had to receive indirect verification in order to know which one could still be used and which ones didn't have any effect. It was just like the sacrificial ritual from before. Klein had already figured out the procedure from the sun, but he waited for Mr. Azik's reply before he dared to conduct the experiment. It was to prevent anything unexpected from happening. As for the hangman, he was at the rank of bishop or captain of the Church of Lords of Storms, so he definitely possessed quite a bit of mysticism knowledge as well. However, the problem was that this was too orthodox and too involved with the Lords of Storm's domain, thereby making it not necessarily suitable for Klein to use. Not all rituals could be performed by asking oneself for help, and he had to consider the spirituality burden he had to bear by praying to himself. With these factors in mind, Klein turned his attention to the former members of a secret organization, Sharron and Maric. The knowledge they possessed was more valuable for wild beyonders to use as a reference. There were also quite a few unorthodox and strange ones that were effective. Of course, this wasn't to say that he would give up on exchanging information with the Sun and the Hangman. By having knowledge from the ancient times, orthodox knowledge, and secrets of the unorthodox knowledge, it would result in him being more all-rounded, giving him a deeper understanding of mysticism. You just get both sides of the coin, right? And that was exactly what Klein wanted. He had never forgotten his ultimate goal was to return to Earth, so the more mysticism knowledge he had, the better. The more comprehensive, the better. The deeper the knowledge was, the better it was. Of course, the premise of pursuing this goal is to get rid of Ince Zungwil. I'm waiting for that day. And avenge myself and the captain. Klein looked at Sharron and Maric and said with the corners of his mouth curled up, I need to know what kind of help you need from me before I can consider agreeing. I won't, nor is it possible for me to joke about it my life. Sharron, who was wearing a small black hat, nodded slightly and acknowledged Klein's words. Maric, who was seated on the other side, leaned forward and put his fist to his mouth. We originally belonged to a rather old and secretive organization. That I can guess. Klein's maintained a serious and stoic expression. That organization took shape at the beginning of the 5th epoch, and after storming of the Berserker Sea cut off the northern and southern continents, forming the southern continents, highlands, kingdoms, and the Pause Kingdom. However, I'm only talking about it taking shape. The organization's origins can be traced back to before Earth's 4th epoch, all the way before the Cataclysm. The pale Maric continued describing. That, I know that too. The Rose School of Thought, isn't it? It's traceable back to the time of the mutant king. Klein wore an attentive look. There's so much lore. Who's heading out? Username? I'm gonna leave now. I'll remember. At next stream, react to episode 102 briefly. It officially comes out Wednesday. Unless, I'll see if I can watch the preview. I got you, username. I got you. Klein wore an attentive look. Maric scratched his slightly messy hair and said, the organization believes in an evil god, and they believe that magic is a science and art that changes according to one's will to change things. This requires the establishment of the religious ritual system, including the law and order. Yes, before the invasion of the northern continent, there was an orthodox organization in the Pause Valley and the Star Highlands alongside the Church of the God of Death. At the same time, they believe that their wills originated from various desires combined with beyond their powers, and they were able to accomplish all sorts of unimaginable things. Because of these ideas, they retain an ancient and bloody traditional primitive sacrifice, including the skinning of people and using the skulls of children as ritual objects, letting a large number of believers feverly release all sorts of desires. We couldn't accept the cruelty of such deeds, and we also felt that it was a very problematic in the way that they had handled their desires. So we looked for an opportunity to escape from the organization, problematic in the way they handled their desires. Klein knew that the Rose School of Thought was famous for its bloody sacrifices, so he wasn't very curious about the former. The blonde and black dressed Sharron replied in the theory of voice. The way they do it is so indulge and burn. Our philosophy is to repress and show temperance. So that's how it is. Klein suddenly thought of the description of the prisoner sequence. The body was the cage of the heart, and the world was the cage of the body. Madness was bound, and desire was suppressed. If the Rose School of Thought didn't grasp the mutate pathway of prisoner, Miss Sharron and Maric's philosophy is clearly more suited to the needs of the acting method. Why couldn't the other members notice this? That's not right. He frowned slightly. Seeing his reaction, Maric thought he didn't understand and explained in a silently hoarse voice. They were influenced by that evil god, and they believed that indulging in the desires would help them strengthen their own willpower. I'm losing my voice. Oh, so it's fully out. Oh, I will definitely watch it after this stream. I got you. They were influenced by that evil god, and they believed that indulging in their desires would help to strengthen their own willpower. When many people let their hair loose, they would also affect each other, adding to their fanaticism, allowing their condition to reach its peak. Our viewers are the exact opposite. We believe that desire must always be suppressed in one's heart, just like the flames and magma underground. Only at a crucial moment can it be unleashed, producing terrifying power. Simply put, it's difference between lust and abstinence. The influence that the evil god has in its contradiction to his own pathway requirements. It feels like something is amiss. Klein thoughtfully asked, so you escaped to Backland and now they're coming after you. Did the dead man in the alley end up involved in this? We didn't get involved. He got himself involved because of something else. Maric rebutted Klein's second guess. A questioning to Klein's first question. Then why don't you just run away from Backland? There are quite a few big cities along the border of the Lowen Kingdom and Desi Bay. Furthermore, you can go to Intis, Facek, Fenepater, Lindbergh, Mazin, and other countries. In other words, you have a reason not to leave Backland. What could it be? Klein thought for a moment and said, okay, I've got the general gist of it. Huh? What kind of help do you need? My sequence isn't high and I don't know any powerful beyonders. There's no way I can go against the secret organization directly. After obtaining the portion formulas for sequence 7, 6, and 5 and other sheer pathways and killing Lenavus, look at him bragging. He's come such a long way. After obtaining the potion formulas for 7, 6, and 5 of the seer pathway and killing Lenavus, Klein actually didn't have to stay in Backland. Where would he go? We know we have to go to Hornica's mountain range. Right? I forgot where that's I think it's bordered in the southern city, Southern continent? Oh, wait, no spoilers. Wait, never mind. Thinking it out loud. There was still a huge gap between him and his next target of vengeance. In Zingwo, who had sealed artifact 008, there was no hope of success with a short period of time. He didn't even dare to approach it, so it wasn't impossible to leave Backland. At the very most, he would feel the pinch for wasting the rental fee that he had paid up front. That is true. He'd feel that. He'd definitely feel that. The reason why Klein was still staying in the large city was because there was a lot of Beyonders here. There were also many resources and ingredients that appeared here. It made it one of the most convenient places to advance the sequence. It suited the revelation of his divination back then. When I become a faceless and I'm almost done digesting it, I'll have to head out to the sea and look for a mermaid? We're getting a boat arc? This thought suddenly flashed through Klein's mind. When I become a faceless, which is next. So after Magician is faceless, and I'm almost done digesting it, I'll have to head out to the sea and look for a mermaid? Can't he just commission Augur? He can brag. He is now equal to sequence to a captain. That is true. Yeah. No, I remember I meant they did say he needed like a mermaid. Like not only did he need the ingredients, he needed to do like a ritual, and it included one of the mermaids, right? Or doesn't he have to hear the singing of a mermaid, or he? Right? Something like that. I forget what it was exactly, but I remember the mermaid was involved. This thought suddenly flashed through Klein's mind. Sharron replied calmly, be our support to kill a Sequence 5 Beyonder together. Why would they need support? Klein was slightly surprised as he asked, with your strength, that organization only sent one Sequence 5 Beyonder to hunt you down. Could it be that the common characteristics of a cult was to be brainless? He has a sealed artifact that greatly restrains me. Sharron answered calmly, her face pale but her expression delicate. The person in charge of this matter is indeed a high sequence Beyonder, but he has been led elsewhere by the clues that were deliberately left behind, Maric added. It's not like we only have Buckland as our only base. If we can kill the person in charge of the nearby boroughs and take away the sealed artifact, we will immediately disguise ourselves and flee. After that, we will no longer be afraid of being hunted down normally. Klein tersely acknowledged, but why do you think I can help? I look so weak. And the target is a Sequence 5 Beyonder with the power and the strange sealed artifact. You're not just a Sequence 9, you're also very special. Sharron looked at him silently with her blue eyes and said with certainty, huh. Klein could only reply with a dry laugh. Sharron, ethereal voice shrouded once again. Besides, you still have that eye. Ooh, she's pretty good. That eye, are you referring to the all-black eye left behind by the nimble right Master Ruzago? And I thought he was going to be the big bad guy of this volume. Good times, good times. I lost my place. Oh, good times. We lost our place again. Klein nodded silently, but I can only use a small portion of it, and it can't produce too much of an effect since it was corrected by the true creator. That's enough. Sharron was always so terse with her words. Maric added, the Sequence 5 Beyonder we are dealing with has similar characteristics as Sharron. Only that eye of yours can help us find him. At that moment, Sharron spoke again. Maric will be the first bait. I'll be the second. As for you, you're the hunter responsible for solving the problems. I can't guarantee absolute safety, but you will definitely be safer than us. Sounds sincere enough, but I'll need to make sure through divination. Klein pondered for a few seconds and said, I want to understand the situation about the other person characteristics and seal artifacts. Only then can I make a decision. Okay. Let's keep going. My bad. I'll delete your message for no reason. My apologies. No, it's okay. It happens. Alright, update. Let's keep going. This chapter is called The Accursed. That sounds hype. That sounds cool. Alright, let's keep going. Chapter 331 is called The Accursed. Dressed in a black regal dress, Sharron pursed her bloodless lips and tilted her head to look at Maric, nodding slightly. Maric clasped his hands and said while concealing some of his madness, you know about the prisoner pathway, don't you? Yes, I heard of it in the Beyonder Circles, Klein answered frankly. Of course, these Beyonder Circles refer to the Nighthawks and the Tarot Club. He sighed in his heart as he added. Maric seems to recall something, and he was silent for nearly 20 seconds. Outside the window, he can hear the rhythmic sound of the carriage wheels rolling across the concrete pavement. He ruffled his messy brown hair and spoke with a slightly twisted expression on his face. Prisoners are those who are locked up in prison, and those are the correspondents to having their spirituality and desires constrained by reason, body, and the world. The Beyonders of this sequence have strong bodies and keen senses, often possessing both a staid appearance and a crazy heart within them. They possess many criminal techniques and are proficient in killing with whatever they can casually acquire. Their corresponding sequence is 8, Lunatic. I believe you aren't aware of this because even an Orthodox Beyonder organization like the 7 Orthodox churches aren't fully aware of such matters. That secret organization members wield powers that far exceed your imagination. Prisoner mentioned when you wake up. What's up, Vec? Good morning. Those nearly twisted bastards are bound, be it their bodies or souls. It would be difficult to obtain any useful information by just relying on mediumship and divination. Sharron and I also put up with this and waited for a very long time before we found a way to remove this binding and successfully escape. As all Beyonders in this pathway are cursed and have crazy characteristics, we don't want to rely on the 7 major churches. We would lose all our freedom without leaving anything behind. So if that's the case, it's no wonder Nighthawk's confidential information doesn't have much about this. It even lacked the corresponding sequence 8 and 7 of Prisoner. It's something I know based on the level I had at the time. Klein replied with a sense of enlightenment. I really am not aware of the situation beyond Prisoner. Maric did a nod as he looked at Klein with his brown eyes and continued. Compared to a prisoner, a lunatic's greatest characteristic is to be able to autonomously sacrifice their rationality and let their desires run amok in exchange for strength and enhancements in every aspect. That sounds kind of crazy. Apart from not having a clear thoughts during this period, no clear thoughts, there isn't much of a problem. They can even gain stronger resistances towards Beyonder powers that can disrupt one's thoughts and influences their mind. To put it simply, I'll get rid of you first and that will make it impossible for you to kill me. Klein couldn't help but lampoon. From this sequence onwards, the curse will gradually appear. Lunatics easily lose control, Maric said as his facial expression muscles twitched. Isn't that obvious? If a person's mental state has been operating at a nadir for a long time, or if there are frequent abnormalities, it would be abnormal if the possibility of losing control isn't higher than that of Beyonders. Klein's had his own understanding of this. He turned to look at Miss Sharon's, feeling that this was hard for him to imagine what she would look like when she was in the Prisoners of Lunatic stages. And throughout this, Sharron maintained her ghostly, silent, and ethereal state. Seeing that he hadn't said anything, Maric slowly exhaled and said, "The next sequence is werewolf." So it's werewolf. That really was next. I know, I keep saying I want to update my stuff off stream, but off stream I'm doing other stuff and I never get to it. That's my fault. But Romero did do a lore management channel. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, he did a lore management chapter where it helps me out when I go through it from time to time, like after stream. So it kind of does help out. Oh, not kind of, like it really does help out. All right, I lost my place. Isn't that obvious? And I thought that Sharron maintained his ghostly, ethereal voice. Oh wait, he turned to look at Klein. Where was the word werewolf mentioned, man? I lost the word werewolf. Oh, a werewolf. Wait. The mutant begins. Ooh. Sequence is werewolf. The mutation begins. However, in the eyes of the normal people, the crazy prisoners and lunatics who are prone to losing their minds are actually similar to such mutants. Wait, so you actually become... Make a copy of your notes so we can update them for you. Well, werewolves of being a sequence 7 is lower than I expected. Klein's thoughts suddenly wandered. Maric didn't notice how he had gone adrift as he continued off. A werewolf is fully cursed person. Every time the crimson moon becomes full, they will lose part of their sanity, grow black fur, and their bloodlust and desires for tasting blood would reach its peak. His voice gradually became a bit erratic, as if he recalled the bitter experience of enduring and representing himself. A werewolf has rather powerful rejuvenating abilities as well as terrifying strength, agility, and speed. Their claws and teeth are in no way inferior to the Beyonder weapons of the same sequence, and they contain venom. They also know some darkness-related spells. For instance, targets who are under the werewolf's control would become subordinates after a period of time. When a werewolf's venom infiltrates their body for a period of time, they would become a monster like werewolf, and typically, these monsters possess very shortened lifespans. After hearing Maric's explanation, Klein made a pertinent conclusion. At the level sequence 7, the werewolf is above average in terms of actual combat ability. A werewolf who is always unable to suppress their instinct to kill and their bloodlust during a full moon will turn increasingly cold and more twisted. Gradually, they will lose their feelings than a normal human would have. Maric added, there was an undisguised pride in his tone. Why am I reading that wrong? It fits Mr. Zick's description of mutants. Klein subconsciously looked at Miss Sharron indistinctly, imagining her werewolf form. However, Wait. By the way, thank you. Thank you, DSB. Wait, so they can turn into werewolves. Sharron and Maric. Indistinctly imagining her werewolf form, however, he could gaze. However, her cold gaze almost made him shiver, and he quickly turned his head back. Maric unconsciously licked his lips. It wasn't the seductive kind done by women, but the kind that gave people a sense of danger. His gaze seemed to momentarily lose focus, leaving his recollections an unknown. After a few seconds, he opened his mouth again. I'm at the corresponding sequence 6 zombie. That explains the zombies. Zombie, your outer appearance really doesn't resemble one. It's no wonder you often play cards with a bunch of your own kind. It turns out that you are also a special kind of zombie, a real living zombie. Oh. So he's acting the zombie part. Klein thought for a moment and said, I heard from Caspers that you aren't afraid of bullets. Maric nodded and said, my body can be as hard as steel even if you use a revolver to fire at my head. I'll only feel dizzy at best. You'll need to shoot me 5 times in the same spot before you're able to break my defense. And even if you break through my defense, to be a zombie, all other forms of damage isn't lethal if the brain isn't destroyed. Why would don't give that away. Don't give that away, Maric. I'm starting to like you. And my strength has been raised significantly from the foundation of werewolf. Furthermore, I wield a portion of death-related spells and can easily summon zombies and control ghosts. I can direct them and am proficient at using cold and decaying beyond powers. Every sequence in the mutant pathway has different characteristics. There are very few changes in the progressive pathway. Klein pondered for a moment and asked, then what about the curse of zombies? Maric clenched his teeth and said, I will thirst for warm blood and fresh meat of humans during full moon. This, yeah, like a werewolf. This state will be particularly serious. The only things to be gratified about is that a zombie's curse replaces the werewolf and lunatic's curse. They do not exist together, and it's the same later on. Every time the crimson moon is full, I will be in great pain. If I don't give up on self-control, I will be in much more pain than I'll lose my ability to fight. And if I indulge myself, I will also become less and less like a human, and risk of losing control is very high. Even if, I don't like the setup for Sharron. I can see why you guys are liking her. She's gonna be in agony during full moons. Okay. Even in normal times, I would always resist the desires of my heart and strong Maric in my heart. Few compared to the Beyonders of other sequences, the others are so much better. Well, except for Abyss and Demoness. Klein suddenly had such a thought. What about Abyss? What's bad about Abyss? What's bad about that? And what's bad about Abyss and Demoness? Klein suddenly had such a thought. Maric paused and glanced at Sharron. Sharron parted her lips and said in an illusionary voice, Sequence 5, Rave. So she's a Rave. No wonder her spirit form was different. She was like in neither human form nor spirit form. She's a Rave. Rave. Look at that new lore. There's such a sequence. It really is a mutant pathway. So the mutant pathway can just become all these crazy, like, fantastical creatures. I'm liking this. Klein, what can be next? Maybe vampire originated from this? Maybe the vampire is from like a further pathway? Or a ghoul? No, Klein was slightly surprised at first, but then he felt that this was indeed a characteristic of a spirit body that could be easily transformed. Having received the prompt, Maric added, after becoming a Wraith, one can turn one's body into a real Wraith and obtain the corresponding powers, such as moving through obstacles, hiding in mirrors, and directly... she was hiding in a mirror once. And directly attacking the soul of the enemy. They can jump through most things with reflections. Okay. Abyss is the demon dog pathway and Demoness. Oh, yeah. Turns you into lady committing crimes. Alma. And don't forget the committing crimes part. I lost my place. And unlike ordinary Wraiths, I found my place. Sorry, this wouldn't be a stream if I didn't lose my place, right? And unlike ordinary Wraiths, even with spirit vision, one will find it difficult to discover such shadows unless they were a high sequence Beyonder. Yes, Wraiths wield many death-type spells. There are many strange techniques, such as forcefully possessing the body and controlling the enemy. Her curse is that of the night of a full moon, so she either consumes a certain number of human souls or she becomes extremely weak. Choosing the former is equivalent to being on the brink of losing control at any moment. Without waiting for Klein to speak, the similarly pale Sharron suddenly said, our target is also a Wraith. Oh, so she's sequence 5. The beyond her powers of zombie, werewolf, lunatic, and prisoner won't be lost as a result of advancement, Maric emphasized. It sounds like my nemesis. I'm precisely afraid of the type who are impervious to revolver bullets and do not suffer immense damage when burned by ordinary flames. Simply put, I'm afraid of ghosts. Klein felt his heart thump a little. After pondering for a few seconds, he asked, what is the effect of the sealed artifact? Why would they restrain you? It actually made you willing to tell me your weaknesses and your curses. Klein had some general guesses. Maric's expression was somehow gloomy and replied, the cursed artifact that needs to be sealed is called the Scarlet Lunar Corona. Up to a certain range, it can create effects similar to it creates effects similar to a full moon. For those who are already cold and warped, it would aid them with explosive strength, but we will become weak and lose our ability to fight. If I give up on myself, then I'd rather choose death. Maric growled hoarsely. I didn't expect a perverted and cowardly fellow like you to be a persistent person. To be able to last until the zombie sequence is indeed extraordinary. Klein didn't interrupt him and listened to the next part of the story. The person who wears the Scarlet Lunar Corona is immune to the effects of the full moon, and they will gain terrifying speed and unimaginable rejuvenation ability. What's the downside? As well as a number of relatively powerful darkness-related spells. However, it will make the wearer's blood gradually turn cold. They will freeze up bit by bit, and if they do not stop in time or drink blood of a living person, they will ultimately die as their blood freezes up compulsively. Oh, completely. Maric seemed to greatly fear the Scarlet Lunar Crown. Okay, so it's incentivizing you to take out your opponent quickly. After he was done, Sharron looked over at Klein with her calm blue eyes. Together with Steve, our zombie Jason, and werewolf Tyr? But as long as Steve is finished off, the others wouldn't be a problem. Maric added, if we succeed, the bionic characteristics left behind by Steve will be mine. The Scarlet Lunar Corona will belong to Sharron. The remaining spoils of war and the Book of Secrets will be your payment. I think that's a good deal. The remaining spoils of war and the Book of Secrets will be your payment. I think that's a fair trade. So at the end, Klein gets what he wants, and then they get what they want. And then they join the crew, and they all become detectives together. Oh, and then Maric becomes like Maric and Sharron become their actual they become their actual bodyguards. Like, Maric becomes the bodyguard that everybody sees, and then Sharron is like the hidden bodyguard that nobody sees. I think it can work. I can see an everlasting friendship established after this whole scenario plays out. Let's pause, update, and let's keep reading. All right, next chapter. 332 is called Notary Certificate. Okay. Everything's updated? Yes, everything is updated. Very generous conditions. Klein almost couldn't believe his ears. Although the most valuable items are the Sequence 5 beyond their characteristics and the powerful sealed artifact with special powers, the rest aren't too bad either. It's impossible for a Sequence 5 powerhouse to only have sealed artifacts provided by the organization. And if any of the Sequence 6 zombies and Sequence 7 werewolves is retained, it would be a bountiful harvest. Klein leaned back and pretended to think to suppress the sudden greed in his heart. He's like, I want it all, man. Your conditions are indeed satisfying, he replied and immediately returned with a question. Who is Shaman King Klarman? What kind of I read that so wrong, man. I know it. What kind of information is recorded in the Book of Secrets? Maric rubbed his temples and said, the Shaman King can both be referred to a high sequence job and also represent an outstanding person who controls the powers and the domains of darkness, the moon, and the strange one who suppresses his peers. Klarman is the later and also the former. He was active in the southern continent during the early parts of the 5th epoch, and then he completely disappeared. Maybe he was hunted down by the Church of Death or our secret organization, or maybe he died of old age in some unknown place. His Book of Secrets includes knowledge such as secrets, contracts, rituals, alchemy, astrology, symbolism, natural interaction, and so on. I wonder how, like, astrology is going to play into this. I see how, like, rituals, alchemy, symbolism, and like all that plays in, but astrology, I don't know how like the stars are gonna play into play. But like take into play. You know what I mean? Like we know seers can divide with tarot cards, right? I mean, we'll see. Hold on, I'm thinking out loud, but we'll see. And so on. Even if an ordinary person gets it, they can become an expert in the field of mysticism. They can even rely on their own natural spirituality to accomplish a small number of beyonder matters without taking any potions. Well, the price is that they will slowly become mentally ill This is the aftermath of one's spirituality of being unable to bear the burden. Sounds good, just what I need. However, this mission is not only difficult in itself, but there's also a certain amount of subsequent troubles. I'm dealing with a secret organization with a history of over 1,000 years. Klein was silent for a few seconds, but he still chose to follow his heart. I wish you have some time to think it over. This was a very serious and dangerous matter. I can't be impulsive. I will give you my answer tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Huh. Come to my house. You know the address. He looked at Sharron while finishing the sentence. He suddenly felt nervous when he finished. They have revealed so much important secret information, even problems that plagued them. If he didn't agree on the spot, would he be silenced? Or will they follow me until I make up my mind? Then how can I go above the gray fog to make my divination? Sharron, who was wearing a black regal dress, looked at Klein quietly. There was no anger, doubt, or emotion in her blue eyes. She suddenly put out a folded piece of paper for a concealed pocket and unfolded it into a rectangle. The paper was orange-yellow with many symbols, including those representing the sun. These symbols and labels drew out an empty zone, one which gave off a very warm and stable feeling. As soon as he saw the piece of paper, Klein remembered what it was and relieved his uptight heart. This was also from the Nimblewright Master Razango. This was the notary certificate. Early part of the 5th epoch. The 5th epoch is already 1,300 plus years ago. Really? I thought it was like 200 years ago during Roselle's time. Oh no, he was like in the early parts, right? This was from the Nimblewright Master Razango. This was a notary certificate. Back when they were distributing the spoils of war, Sharron had taken this mystical item. Oh, the item she took way back then. The pale, delicate Sharron handed the notary certificate to Klein and said in a refined voice, "Press your hand here. Promise to not divulge what you have just heard." Phew, Klein exhaled and nodded seriously. All right. According to the prompt, he took the notary certificate and pressed his palm against the blank area. Then, after some deliberation, he opened his mouth and said, "I promise I won't tell anyone what I just learned from Miss Sharron and Mr. Derek." As he said each word, the symbols and magic labels around the notary certificate lit up, one by one, giving off a warm and bright glow. When it was all over, the light turned into a seal-like image that pressed down on Klein's palm, and even pressed through it, covered the blank zone. A warm current passed through him, and Klein felt a subtle but invisible connection between himself and the notary certificate. Back then, the ability mimicked by old Mr. Eye of Wisdom really does belong to a notary. He suddenly thought of something from before. "I'm done." Klein returned to the notary certificate. I think I'm reading it wrong. Sharron calmly nodded her head and didn't say anything. Her indifferent figure quickly disappeared from the carriage. Maric, still suppressing the malice in his eyes, tapped the carriage with his fingers. The carriage slowly stopped at the door of the carriage and opened. They're using zombies to drive the carriage in shadows and act as attendants. It really is Maric style. After activating his spirit vision, Klein took off his cap and enlightenment, pressed it to his chest, bowed slightly, and got off the carriage. It was a quiet street, one where several of the street lamps were broken, but no one had fixed them. Klein first went to his one-room apartment in Eastboro before returning to 15 Mink Street and pretending to make 2 divinations in the living room. The first was whether or not he should accept this commission. The second time was whether or not it was dangerous and how dangerous it was. As for the answer to the divination, he didn't pay close attention to it because the race of the mutant pathway couldn't transform into spirit bodies, allowing them to directly interact with the spirit world to obtain information. In other words, they naturally possess the power of divination and anti-divination. So regardless of whether it was Sharron or the target, Steve, the revelation that Klein received was either wrong or deviated. After he finished his divination, he read the newspapers and books as he usually did. He practiced his beyond powers in the activity room, then he washed up and went to sleep. There was nothing abnormal about it. At 4:10 in the morning, Klein suddenly woke up and jumped out of the bed. He found a candle, built a wall of spirituality, and quietly began the ritual summoning himself. Then he took 4 steps counterclockwise and went above the gray fog. But he was in no hurry to respond to the prayer. Sitting in the high back chair belonging to the fool, Klein focused on the surface of the long bronze table. He saw the all-black eye, Zig's copper whistle, the dark emperor card, and the dark majestic figure of Roselle's holding a scepter. The corner of his mouth twitched, and Klein stretched out his right hand to turn the card of blasphemy upside down. What I can't see can't hurt me. After conjuring a pen and paper, he took off his top-ass pendulum and repeated his first 2 divinations. The result... Wait, what is he doing with the card of blasphemy? The result of the first divination rotated clockwise at the adequate frequency. That was to say that the commission should be accepted, but it also wasn't necessary. The result of the second divination was a counterclockwise rotation of the top S pendulum, but it spun with great amplitude and frequency. Klein's interpretation was that there was danger, quite considerable danger, but it wasn't life-threatening yet as long as it was properly dealt with. Phew, after remaining silent for a few seconds, Klein remembered a hunch from before. Perhaps every magician needs to perform. Otherwise, the name of the potion would be Mage, not Magician. You guys did point that out. Like, he's not mage, he's a magician. Ah, like a mage doesn't have to perform. A magician has to perform. Ah, so he's gonna have this whole grand spectacle in front of them, right? He's going to act and perform that of a magician in front of Maric and Sharron. And they're gonna be like, oh my god, he's such a good beyonder. Bam, and he starts digesting his magician potion. Okay. Sharron is so badass and cute. The 5th epoch starts at 1300 years. Whatever happens within those are in the 5th epoch. Okay. Well, I mean, we're still in the 5th epoch. Allegedly. Apparently. Yeah, okay. Okay. Alright. I lost my place. The key to never perform unprepared is to be... The key to never perform unprepared is to be prepared as well as to perform. And this may not be in combat. The two assumptions of the diverting the enemy's attention and getting the applause of the audience is predicted of being a performer. As long as I can find the appropriate solutions, disguise myself well, and deal with it perfectly, it will be hard for the Rose School of Thought to find me. Many thoughts flashed through Klein's mind. Combined with the revelation he had just received from divination, he quickly came to a decision. Leaning back against the fool's high back chair, he raised his head to look at the towering ancient palace of the fountainless gray fog and revealed a slight smile. Then, let's have a grand performance. With that, he took the all-black eye and a Zig's copper whistle and responded to his own prayers. The next morning was a Thursday morning. Klein, who had bought the ingredients, early prepared the homemade Phantom Potter noodles. Damn, I'm craving noodles. Which was closer to the noodles mixed with meat sauce. He went to the door to take out today's newspaper from the mailbox. As he ate, he found a notice of a Beyonder gathering in the Backland Morning Post. As expected, one of the 10 situations that resolve the gathering begins. Klein smiled and said to himself. At 9 o'clock, he took out his golden pocket watch, opened it, and took a look. Then he faced the empty living room and said in the oriel window, I am willing to provide help. The conditions are exactly as you said, but that's only if you give me a few more days. He paused for a moment before replying with a smile. I need to make some preparations. Other than Klein, there was no one else in the living room, but suddenly an illusory voice rang out. Okay, after you finish preparing, you can pay the bar a visit. In Viscount Glaine's study, Audrey was... POV change? In Viscount Glaine's study, Audrey was sitting in a chair, helping Susie straighten the fur on the back of her head. She said to Force and Shio, who were sitting quietly beside her while sipping their wine, why were you in such a hurry to bring me here? Although this was the first time she had seen Force and Shio since the incident with Lundavus, she had already paid them through Susie. Well, after joining us at the Tarot Club, Force seems to remain unchanged. She's still languid and fond of being snide with Shio, but there are some things about her that are completely different. She used to be dispirited, depressed, and she seems to hold high hopes for the future. But now that aspect has completely disappeared. Audrey the telepathist smiled faintly and observed the state of Miss Magician with a calm heart. After downing the rest of the red wine, Force said, It is indeed our mirror. The most famous red wine. It's much better than the ones I've drunk before. The level is very clear and each level has a different feeling. She put down her wine cup and said, the gathering that might have the spectator includes the psychology alchemist will be held this afternoon. Is that so? Why the rush? Are they going to the same one? Is that so? Why the rush? Audrey asked, puzzled. For example, Smile, because the serial killer hasn't wasted too much of everyone's time. Moreover, that at the outskirts of the North Borough, it's during the afternoon when the Nighthawks are most relaxed. Okay, Audrey nodded lightly and didn't ask any further. At the same time, her gaze swept across the room, and she sighed silently. Compared to the past, Shio is a lot quieter compared to the present Force. At that moment, I'm yawning, I'm sorry. Viscount Glane chuckled and said, Audrey, I will go with you. Why? Audrey asked despite knowing the answer. Glane cleared his throat and said, it's because I've already obtained the apocryphy formula. I wonder who sold it to him. All I need to do is trade it for some ingredients. My vault doesn't have the 2 corresponding ingredients. Oh, Force sold it to me for 300 pounds. She guarantees that it's authentic. 300 pounds. I remember that you bought it from Mr. World for only 230 pounds. Audrey couldn't help but glance at Force like, this fucking swindler. She is charging more. I like it. Okay, that was pretty good. Almost forgot to... No, your health is more important. Let your voice... Yeah, let your voice rest. Yeah, we'll probably call it. Yeah, we'll call it. We're gonna rest a little bit. We're gonna go drink some warm tea in my new beautiful Japanese mug that I bought in Japan. And then we'll be back tomorrow. All right, guys. Peace. I like what I read. It was a lot of fun. I'm very optimistic to see Sharron join the crew. Read half a chapter, then go. But I'll read half a chapter off stream. Bye, everyone. It was fun. Yeah, take care. All right, guys. Peace. I'm gonna see you guys soon. I'm excited for the new Three Musketeers helping out Sherlock Moriarty. You know, I think it's gonna be fun, and I'm feeling optimistic. All right, guys. I think we might be getting a fight tomorrow. We might be getting a fight Monday my time or Tuesday my time, but we will see. All right, guys. Peace. Have a beautiful day. All right, later, guys.